to just come here, talk at you, say they engaged, and leave. Those people that are at the policy roundtables are there to ask you questions, to actually hear your thoughts and take that back to their constituents. So, all that being said, welcome to our Year Zero OGs, for many of you in the audience who are here with us for the party, and for those of whom who are our new friends, we're so excited to have you. I know it's been a little bit crazy, especially for people who were not here in Year Zero and didn't realize we're kind of a fuck it, we ball mentality. But you kind of have to be crazy to build community, and it's hard and it's difficult, but we do it because we care about you guys. We want to empower you. We want to make sure all of you have a really phenomenal time here. So really thank you guys so much for coming. I'll introduce my fellow directors one by one. We have my deputy director, the woman who keeps me sane single-handedly, and director of community and trust and safety, Sarah Płazik. We have the woman who makes sure I don't swear on our official Twitter and also make sure we look good inside and out, Supriya Mazumdar. And the woman who single-handedly made sure that this venue would not kick us out despite Snowmageddon, Katie Noble. And I think Katie has some announcements, general logistics before we get going.
All right, hey y'all. All right, so I have some announcements. I'm Katie Noble, I'm the Director of Logistics. So let's see, let's go from the first ones here. So the first thing I want to say is I really want to call out our volunteers. We had over 100 volunteers apply. We accepted 60 volunteers. Volunteers are in blue shirts. We could not do this with volunteers. So I want to say thank you so much to our volunteers. If you need anything, go find a blue shirt and we will do our very best to help you. Okay, so one done. Now, code of conduct. I don't want to be, I want to make sure everybody very passionate and we abide by it. So if you think it's not right, you let, because we're very passionate about our code of let's see. Oh yeah. So this is our year 1.5. There are shenanigans afoot. There are Snowmageddon, there's weather, there's all the things. Please bear with us. We are working out the kinks. We appreciate everybody who did the line this morning and came through. You guys were fantastic getting your badges and getting in here. But bear with us while we work through some of these kinks. We really do appreciate it. It's how we build community and we have to do it together. Let's see. If you see any feedback or if you need anything, like if you see a way to improve, please also do let us know. We do have ways to be contacted, and we would like to know how we can improve and make this a great experience for everybody. The Wi-Fi. You will probably have noticed that there is a Wi-Fi that says DistrictCon with no numbers. Don't connect. Please don't be a victim. That is not us. We are the DistrictCon with the numbers. So just so you know. Right, Wi-Fi. Weather. We all know about the weather. If you don't know about the weather, there's some weather problems. Just so you know. Please do what you need to do for your own safety. It's really important. We don't want anybody having a problem because of whatever. Please just do what you need to do for your own safety. We have a party tonight. We are super excited about this party. It is hosted by our sponsor, Blue Sky. Yeah, thank you, Blue Sky. It's amazing. It's going to be at Dirty Habit tonight, which is down the road. With the weather, we are going to suggest that you take the metro, or if you go to the Blue Sky booth, we have $10 off lift codes. So if you want to come to the party, we'd love to have you. We're going to have a great time. We have heat. Don't worry. And we're super excited about that. We are so excited about it. We commissioned a very just extravagant art exhibit, and we're really excited to share all of that with you. So please come to the party. Cold and Weather, sponsored by. Please have a good time while you're here, and be safe, and tell us how we can improve. And I'm giving you, what? A badge is required for the party. So please bring your badge. And I will give you back over to Winona.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, thank you guys so much. One last thing on the trust and safety side. If you do see something and you do want to report it anonymously, districtcon.org/report-it. Okay, all that out of the way, I'm so excited to announce our keynote of the morning. I am so excited to introduce Ian Levy. Ian, come on up. Woo! All right. Ian was at GCHQ, which is the UK Signals Intelligence and Security Agency, for over 25 years. He also set up the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, which is GCHQ's defensive arm. And now he is a distinguished engineer at Amazon with a bunch of stuff to say. So really, really excited to have you here, Ian. Right.
Thank you. Morning. So, while I'm working this out, it's really nice to see key parts of British culture remaining in the States. Obsessing about the weather and queuing. Thank you, I appreciate it. So, I'm going to rant at you because this is a rant. I apologize in advance for about 45 minutes, maybe. Think of questions. If there are no questions, there will be awkward silence, so think of questions. Disclaimer first, right? This is nothing to do with Amazon, right? All of this is my own ranting. My subliminal message got... Like, seriously, it's just me on a rant, right? I have done some stuff, learned some things. I want from it. So a bit about me. I am sarcastic by default, right? So for the Americans in the room, irony is not a bit like coppery or steely. It's a humor thing, okay? I'm also from Yorkshire, which is in the north of England, and so I swear by default. So I'm going to try not to. Now, Winona swore, so I think I'm okay. Hands up, seriously, point of principle, does anybody really object if I swear by accident? Oh, thank fuck for that. Okay. Thank you, whoever said that. So I am a mathematician and a computer scientist by training. I am still allowed to use a compiler every now and then, just every now and then. I did some stuff at GCHQ. I'm going to talk about some of that. As Winona said, GCHQ is the UK's Signals Intelligence and Security Agency, so it's kind of like NSA, but politer. Keep calm while we steal your data. After 20-odd years, I'd had enough. There's only so much you can take in that job, and so I decided to go do something else. And Amazon is kind of cool, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And this is not an advert for Amazon, just to be clear. So, differences. The fallacy of scale. So, my first meeting at Amazon, right? So I turn up at this meeting, and it's about patching. And people are talking about patching, and I'm like, it cannot be this difficult. I'm like, stop. How many hosts are we talking about? What, like 5 million? And there's like a 10-second pause, and then everybody bursts into hysterical laughter. Right? Amazon has more physical hosts than there are people in the UK. Right? That's kind of fucking scary. Right? One of our security monitoring systems, like we've got agents on all of those hosts that generate telemetry, one of those systems generates more data in a month than the UK government holds in total. Right, that's fucking amazing. Right? When I was in government, we had an incident, and I went to the service provider who was running the network, and I said, "Hi, can I have your logs, please?" And they're like, well, we don't really have them. We have to write them to CD for you. Don't. And it's going to cost you £20,000 for us to do it. I'm like, hang on, it's your system that's been popped. Why are you charging me to help you? Right? That was kind of what I was used to. I got to Amazon, and we have things go off all the time, and we go and investigate. And somebody says, we're going to do a log dive. I'm like, what's a log dive? It's like, well, we're going to go and look at the logs. I'm like, sure, okay, I believe you. How long do you keep logs for? It's like, well, 10 years. Like, bullshit. How long do you actually keep logs for? It's like, 10 years. Fuck. Well, you actually look at them. It's like, yeah, every day we'll run a log dive across 10 years worth of data to try and see if something has ever been exploited. You're like, this is a different scale. And so what's interesting is not that we're cool, because we are. jobs are available. What's interesting is a bunch of things that you think are axiomatically true in a country turn out to be false when you get into something the scale of Amazon. Things that you think are axiomatically false when you're a country turn out to be true when you are the scale of Amazon. An example. Hands up if you know what formal methods are. Hands up if, keep your hands up, you're among friends, right? You do you. Hands up if you are a formal methods practitioner. Nobody's admitting. Oh, one person! Thank you. In my old job, I put 5 million quid a year into a research institute. Oh, 5 million quid is 5 million pounds. That's actual money. It's like, I don't know, $10 trillion or something. I don't know. Anyway, I put 5 million a year into a research institute around formal methods. Can we formally prove something? And we put, I don't know, it's 5 years, right? At the end of those 5 years, we had just proved a cryptographic protocol and found a bug. I'm like, yes, a result. I turn up at Amazon, and we formally prove entire systems. Right? The scale of compute that we have, the scale of scientists we have, fundamentally changes some of the calculus. I'm going to come back to that later. One of the big differences between industry general and specific and gun factor. So many people in technology, so having a rational, reasonable conversation is much easier. In government, there were times when I was the only person in the room who understood the technology. Right? That is not a good place to be. Like some random Yorkshireman going, oh, we should totally do this, and having nobody challenge you is a scary place to be, both personally but also for the country. Right? I mean, you've probably worked out I am a lunatic, right? It's pretty obvious. How is it okay that one lunatic can dictate government policy? We have a massive dearth of people who actually understand technology in government, and that needs to be fixed. But more people who are invested in the outcome rather than their personal benefit. Right? So in Amazon, again, this is not an advert for Amazon, right? So when I joined, you got all these leadership principles. One of them is customer obsession. It's like, do what's right for the customer first. I'm like, yeah, sure. As soon as it comes to money, it's not going to be true. It's actually true. Right? Most of the things in Amazon, almost everything is driven by what it means for the customer. In government, it's what it means for your minister. Right? And your reward window is completely fucked up because of that. So we can take a long game in industry, right? In government, you're looking for a reward within the election period that you're currently in. The minister who's sponsoring whatever it is has to get a benefit before the next election cycle. It cannot possibly be the person after them. That would be terrible. And so you're really limited in the window you can play in. I think the risk calculus is more natural in Amazon versus government because it's pretty simple, right? If I can make you whole, it's quite easy, right? So in the retail business, if you lose $100 because the thing you bought gets stolen, I can make you whole by giving you $100 back, give you the new shiny thing, right? Can't do that in government. It's impossible. Talked about reward windows. This is a killer, right? For 10 years, I had literally everybody on the internet telling me I was doing it wrong. Right? 10 years running the National Cybersecurity Centre, everybody said, you're a fucking idiot. You have no idea what you're doing. And you have to sit there and take it for 10 years until 10 years later you can go, actually, some of it worked. Screw you. You don't get that in Amazon. Right? There is nothing. You've got a bunch of people who are trying to do the right thing. And we will have really quite hard conversations. But the impact of failure is arguably higher at Amazon than it was in my old job. And I didn't understand this when I left. So, I protected a country. Don't you know who I am? Right? You rock up at Amazon, AWS runs like 50 of the major allied Western governments. Right? If AWS goes down, bad things happen. Right? Think about how many people's personal data we hold in the bookshop. Think about Kuiper, the satellite, LEO it's called now. Who the hell calls a low Earth orbit a satellite system LEO? LEO, the LEO system. I mean, come on. That's why I'm not in marketing. right? All of those things, you bring them together, Amazon's got a huge impact on the world, and the security that we put behind it is kind of important. And I didn't realize that a company could have more impact than a government until I actually sat inside it. So back in 2016, we launched the UK's NCSC, as Winona said. And the NCSC was first of its kind. It was a single agency to do all the things for the cybers, right? So top secret military intelligence systems, local government, central government, health, education, big business, small business, charities, sports clubs. We had a team doing sports clubs, don't ask, all the way down to the 66 million people that live in the UK. These were kind of the big thrusts that we started off with. I'm going to go through them just to go over what we did and what's different now. So the magic amulet problem. Go back to the Middle Ages, right? You have a rash on your leg. You go to the wise woman in the village, and you give her a groat, and she gives you a magic amulet to put around your neck. Right? One of two things happens. You die, because it was bubonic plague, or you get better, in which case the magic amulet was awesome, right? This is cybersecurity today. It's still the same problem, right? We talk about things like this, right? I made this up last night when I was slightly drunk. As you can tell, because the vulnerability is called the flaming turd pile vulnerability, you know. We don't talk about attacks and security in a way that normal people can comprehend. We have our own language. We talk about it in ways that make people fearful. And if you're fearful, you cannot do good risk management, right? This is one of the root causes of why cybersecurity is so terrible at the moment, because of how we talk about it. It leads to this. If you can't talk about it in an XKCD cartoon, it's not worth doing, right? This, I'll give you 20 seconds to read it. So, you're all quite slow readers, aren't you? This is what happens if you don't understand the threat you're trying to mitigate. You just throw everything at it. Absolutely everything. Oh no! The evil power cuts back. Is it coming back? That's too. Have I tried turning it off and on again? That's too complicated for me. Thank you. So, fun fact, Jeff, who's involved in making the badges, also makes the similar sort of badge for Amazon's internal conference. There are two versions. There's the normal one, and there's the VP version. The VP version is simpler. You can tell I'm not offended. Anyway, the way we talk about security leads to this, right? You don't actually think about what you're doing. You just throw every single tool that you've got at it at the problem, and it leads to really terrible outcomes. So back in 2010, I put this on the internet, right? Airgap.im. It is no longer there. This is the only place that exists for posterity. Let me read to you some of the features of the air gap. Stops all viruses, known and unknown. It's true. I can't read it, it's too small. God, I've got old. Prevents employee use of the internet, 100% protection against spam, and so on and so on and so on. Right? 2010, I put this out. I used it at a RSA private dinner that year to make a point, and somebody said, I need a compete analysis for my product against this. It's a fucking air gap. It's a 19-inch rack unit with two RJ45s on the back and nothing in the middle. It's an air gap, right? It does all of those things precisely, right? I still reckon we could sell that today, right? The marketing around security is this kind of crap, right? And it's awful. So the other thing that I was told when we set up the NCSC is you've got to educate users because they're stupid. Okay, so this is a biased audience, I believe, right? You're not my normal demographic. Hands up if you use the internet. Okay, cool. So if you think about the guidance we used to give, which was have a different complex password for every service you use and change it every 27.8 days, because it sounds scientific, it's broadly equivalent to saying, please remember a different 300-digit number every month. Is that a rational thing to say to someone? Of course it isn't. This is utter bollocks. Right? Use as a dummy is utter bollocks, that they are the worst, the weakest link in our security is utter crap. It's our fault. Let me tell you a story. My nice pictures, I've spent seconds on these slides and they keep disappearing. What should be up there is a picture of an amazing B-17 bomber. Right? It was the workhorse of the US during World War II. And the picture that there it is, shiny B-17 bomber, right? Amazing looking thing. Most of them ended up like that, right? But not over enemy territory. Most of them ended up like that on landing back at their home airfield, right? And the accepted wisdom at the time was, well, the pilots aren't trained well enough. Right? Imagine, right, you've been on a 12-hour sortie, you're coming back, it's cold, it's dark, it's raining, you are knackered, the adrenaline is starting to drain from your body, right? You're coming into land, oh, yes, get home. And you're confronted with this, right? This is the control panel for the B-17 bomber, okay? One of those switches, it's fine, one of those switches is for the landing gear. One of those switches is for the flaps. So basically, one of those switches is land safely, and the other one is die horribly. If the picture was up, there it is, right. That's land safely, that's die horribly. I shit you not, right? They are identical toggle switches about that far apart. It's dark, it's raining, you're tired. Is that a remotely sensible thing to do? It took two guys about 2 years to get enough evidence to prove that it was the design that was wrong, not the pilots. And it led to something called shape coding. Right? Shape coding exists today still. This is the cockpit of an Airbus A380. Right? Important things have changed. Number one, we have fluffy covers on the seats. Awesome. But more importantly, that is the gear lever. That drops the wheels. Right? You can't see it brilliantly in this photo, but the end of that is a wheel. It's round. And so even if you've got smoke in your eyes and it's dark and you can't see shit, you get hold of it and go, it's a wheel. That's probably the wheels. Clunk, right? The flaps are down here. That is a massive, big, square knob, right? It's huge because it has a massive impact on the flight stability. And so it's really difficult to move it. But it's also not next to the fucking wheels, right? So my question, after all these years, was the IT equivalent of shape coding? Why do we still present people with emails with embedded links and go, it's your job to make sure that link is cool before you click it? Can anybody here do that? I mean, I can do it when I'm sober, right? I can read the headers. I can go, yeah, it came the right way. It's probably what it says it is. Its DMARC records and SPF records are all cool. Awesome. 3 glasses of wine? Not a chance. Right? And so it is a fundamentally stupid thing to ask people to do. Risk. Talking about risk is hard. Risk is a very personal thing. It's a state of mind. It's not a science, right? 2016, and you can tell it still affects me. The chief medical officer in the UK said there is no safe limit for alcohol consumption, right? Even 1 drink a day increases your lifetime risk of alcohol-related death by 1%. And you're like, oh shit. Friday night, I took like 24 years off my life. Shit. Right? This guy, a guy called David Spiegelhalter. David Spiegelhalter was the professor for public understanding of risk at Cambridge University. Brackets, he knows some shit. Right? So he used to publish this blog, Understanding Uncertainty. And he explained all sorts of interesting things about it, right? But this is the graph that the chief medical officer put out. Right? And it's like, 1 glass of wine a day makes your risk go down, but then after that, it's poison. Right? So it's the title, Medicine, Poison, 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 Poison. Here's the interesting thing. Hands up if you understand what a 1% increase in lifetime risk means. How do you like think about it? Seriously, hands up if you think you know what it means. Wow. Okay. You're not falling for the joke. Okay, that's fine. So I ended up talking to this guy, and we came up with an equivalent risk. So the increase in risk of drinking, a couple of glasses of wine a day or a beer a day is broadly similar to having a bacon sandwich twice a week or watching Downton Abbey every day. Now, personally, I think the risk to my health of watching an episode of Downton Abbey every day is much higher than booze, but that's being sedentary for an hour a day watching TV has the same health risk as drinking wine. Does that scare you? Right? When we're told that this is like going to be the end of the world. Language really matters when you talk about risk. So I'm going to go back to 2008, financial crisis. There were 5 sets of financial instruments that caused that crisis. The first one was called mortgage-backed securities. That sounds cool, right? It's got the word secure in it, so it must be good. And it's backed by a mortgage. Awesome. Second one, collateralized debt obligations. No idea what collateralized means, but it sounds good. And there's still an obligation on my debt. Also cool. Yeah? If somebody defaults on my credit, I can swap it, maybe? That doesn't sound great. Subprime debt. Toxic debt really doesn't sound good. So you, as a person, right, as a non-expert, you could be forgiven for investing in mortgage-backed securities, but I think you would all agree you'd be an idiot to invest in toxic debt, right? Agreed? Yeah? They're all the same thing. They're all the same financial instrument packaged slightly differently. The way you talk about risk really matters. How do we talk about risk and security? Terribly. It's the end of the world. The Chinese are coming to eat your children. We don't have any science in cybersecurity. None. This is a graph showing basically your chance of dying should you get on an aeroplane between 1970 and 2005, I think it is. Hands up if you flew here on an aeroplane. Hands up if you flew on something else. That was a really bad stunt. Yeah, okay. So, hands up. Keep your hands up if you flew on an aeroplane. Keep your hand up if you felt safe. Right? Why? Why do you feel safe? My graph's gone. This is why you feel safe, right? It's systemic harm reduction. So this says, back in 1970, if you got on a plane, you were relatively likely to be in an accident. You were relatively unlikely to survive if you were. By the time you get to 2005, you are relatively unlikely to be in an accident. You are relatively likely to survive if you are. Right? This is systemic harm management. What we do in security is vulnerability management, which is a fundamentally different thing and is dumb as fuck. Right? This is what we should be doing. Let me give you an example. Here is a description of a stack buffer overflow. Hands up if you think it's in Windows. I mean, there are many, many buffer overflows in Windows. Hands up if you think it's a Windows bug. Nobody's playing my games today. You're all boring. My point comes next, right? It's from 1972. This is a description, the first that I can find, of a stack buffer overflow being a security problem is from 1972. It's in a system called GCOS, right? And it's a user mode to kernel mode exploit. Okay? 1972. 1995. Smashing the stack for fun and profit. Yeah. Cool. That's nearly 20 years. 2017. WannaCry. WannaCry caused billions and billions and billions of dollars of damage around the world. It all fucked up my birthday weekend that my kids had planned for me. Not that I'm bitter. There is part of the code where the bug is. Spot the bug. So remember, this is Windows SMB, so it's part of, 110 million lines of code at the time, something like that. Those 8 characters, it's that cast, casting a 32-bit to a 16-bit. And so you get an overflow. How is it okay that we've built a world in which 8 characters can fuck the entire world? Right? That is not okay. You wouldn't tolerate that anywhere else. No other subjects would you tolerate that level of fragility. So we go, got it. Sherry and REMS. So Sherry was is a piece of work by Cambridge University and some others that builds ISA extensions, so instruction set architecture extensions for lots of different CPU architectures that allows you to have guarantees about memory safety, right? Both spatial and temporal memory safety. So I invested £72 million in getting this built. 72 million. And nobody uses it. Literally nobody. I get to Amazon, I'm like, have I got an idea for you guys? We should do this because it would be a differentiator. We put it in awesome. Graviton better than everybody else. Cannot do a memory safety bug on it. At reInvent end of last year, something called the new right? It's a full-proved hypervisor. Formal methods? No, actually is when you have scale. So we've launched something, it's written in Rust, and it is the way that we will virtualization. Same effect on a Graviton processor as, but for much less cost. I completely misunderstood incentives about how to do memory safety. And so I, $70 million up, but I pissed 72 million quid up the wall. We also talked about automation. And this was the active cyber defense UK. Right? So we said we're going to take down malicious, take down any that we're going to fix SSN, we're going to fix email, we're going to do protective DNS for the entire country, it's going to be all, and everybody's doing apps here. They are right, I am campaigns over the UK host and the UK IPs in ASN that are delegated entity hosted about global phishing. By the time we finished, it was 1.2%. HMRC, which is the UK tax collector, go where the money is, was the second most phished brand on the planet when we started. When we finished, it was 150th, right? Understanding the criminal incentive lets you change things. When we finished, we had a system that had the state of the UK telecoms industry, run analytics in real time. And so I saw, for example, the Indian government trying to hijack my protective DNS for government to protect. It's like, oh, cool. 500, something like that. Right? If you do things at scale, you can have an effect. Is the right place to do things at scale. Oh, we published all of our data. This was a first, right? Government saying we're going to do something, actually doing it, and then holding ourselves to account by data. Nobody's done that before. You're an idiot. These are worth reading. Right? These active cyber defense reports are actually worth reading because it's like, here's some things we tried. This worked. This didn't. Right. Technology does not exist in isolation, right? And this group, probably more than any other I've spoken to in the last few years, should understand this. Technology is part of great power competition. And great power competition at the moment is, what's the word? Batshit, right? The West versus China and Russia, the US versus everybody? I don't know. Anyway. This is the current national cybersecurity strategy in the UK. Right? It's just about to be replaced, but this is the current one, and the integrated review behind it. The integrated review talks the UK into a science and technology power. Yeah, we haven't learned, right? I mean, I wrote some of this, but we really haven't learned. It talks about turning us into a science and tech superpower, right? We're going to use the things that we have to have massive effect on the world, much, much more than you would expect of a small island in the arse end of nowhere, right? It's cool. It's actually worth a read. It's really good fun. This is the 15th, and it says the same thing. Is one of those okay? Why is that the case, right? Technology encodes standards. Standards encode values. And so the technology you buy comes with a bunch of values. Whose values do you want? Right, this is not a trick question, right? It's not a simple question either. You cannot divorce entirely from either of those two ecosystems, right? But there is a real thing here that the technology you buy comes with a set of inherent values. You need to work out what you want to do with that, how you want to shape it, right? This group probably is one of the best to try and shape some of this stuff, because without technical expertise, you get dumb shit happening. Let me talk about some dumb shit. Details really matter in security. I mean, really matter. So, a case study in incentives and geopolitics. Huawei. Hands up if you know what Huawei is. Oh, good. Excellent. This is going to be fun. So, back in 2017, in April, we published something that said, oh, look, hypothetically, people could be attacking internet edge routers in large telcos. If they were doing it, hypothetically speaking, this is how you'd spot it, this is what you should do to detect it, and this is what you should do to kick them out and make sure they don't come back, right? Nobody read it. A few months later, we said, actually, somebody is attacking internet edge routers in telcos and is doing these things. Here's how you detect it, here's how you spot it, here's how you kick them out. Nobody read it. Then we said, it's the Russians! Suddenly, everybody's like, fuck! Right? So, back in 2017, 2018, the Russians successfully compromised one of our national carriers, installed GRE tunnels, siphoning traffic back to Russia in about 1,800 routers, CE routers, and they're all big edge routers. They tunneled port 80, port 25. Cool, understand that. They also tunneled port 443. And to this day, I am convinced myself they were doing it just to fuck with us, because the alternative is terrible. Right? The alternative is they can decrypt SSL, and that's terrible. So they were fucking with us, and it's fine. If you're watching, nicely done. So the interesting thing about this is how they did it. So the Russians are a significant, competent group of cyber actors, right? I mean, professional respect. In order to compromise those 1,800 edge routers, they used the incredibly complicated cyber attack of telnet from the internet. Yes, the management plane was connected to the internet, it was single-factor auth, and they managed to get the password. Right? And nobody noticed. Awesome. So we did a bunch of work and said, okay, so how are UK telcos actually built? What do they actually comprise of? How do they actually work? And that was published in this. And as part of that, you start looking at standards. So these are the standards, so the first three are the standards bodies that were defining telco networks. So 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G now. The numbers after them are the number of groups that set technical standards is the denominator, and the numerator is the number of Chinese chairs. So telling me I can't use Chinese technology is kind of stupid because they own all of the technical working groups. The last number on that slide is the number of standard essential patents that Chinese companies own. So they own about 25% of all standard essential patents for 5G, right? So you have to deal with Chinese technology if you want to use a mobile phone. You have no choice. It's such a shame you can't see this slide. It's amazing. I mean, genuinely, it's probably the best slide I've ever written. So while we were talking about how to build 5G networks securely, somebody said, you cannot secure your network if there is even a single Chinese base station in it. Okay? So, Hands up if you think that's true. Hands up if you think it's not true. I'm just making sure you're actually still awake. Okay, good. It cannot be true, right? Because 5G uses small cells, right? So on the top of every lamppost, on every bus stop, trees, I have 5G cells, right? They're not the massive, like, half a megawatt things. They're these little cells that pump out, a few hundred watts. If that is true, then the entire security of my network is predicated on somebody not getting on top of a bus, unplugging the base station. If that is true, you've built your network wrong. You are not competent to build a national network if that is true. This is utter bollocks. It's utter bollocks. And yet that was the narrative. And then you go, okay, so what about the US manufacturer? They're all trustworthy. Oh, come on. This is the Naturalization Act, 8 US Code 1324B1, for a US company to discriminate against someone based on their nationality if they have a right to work. So I go to Ericsson, Redby, in California, and I say, hi, how many Chinese nationals write the code for your base stations? Like, well, we're not allowed to know. How many Russians write the control plane for your SDN? No, we're not allowed to know. Right? So is nationality of the company actually a useful discriminator? I argue not. Right? What you should do instead is do some actual work. Right? So this is a public blog post that where I talked about the way we approach telecom security in the UK. This is the security analysis. It's most of it. Right? So it's about 90% of it. There was bits we didn't want to publish, but that's about 90% of it. It's on the interwebs. You can go read it. Right? And you can judge whether we were idiots or not. As an example, that is, we came up with about 140 different ways of pwning a telco network. Right? Only one of those involves the manufacturer being bad. Right? But you can see there's a whole bunch of shit there that needs fixing. We then changed the law. So the law used to be, when that original attack happened back in 2017, Ofcom, the regulator, the telco regulator, went to the company and went, right, we're going to investigate. The company was like, have at it. Because the law at the time said that Ofcom could only levy a fine if and only if there was an outage that affected more than 10,000 people. The Russians were very, very careful. There's no outages. And so Ofcom had no way of fining that company. Right? Even if they had been able to do so, the maximum fine was 500 grand. Right? If you know anything about telecom, you know that 500 grand, you can't do a damn thing in a telco network for 500 grand. And so the incentive for those companies was, fuck it, take the fine, it's cheaper. Because their fiduciary responsibility comes first as a company. This changed the law. It said that Ofcom can rock up whenever they want and go, hi, show us your security. If it's not good enough, we're going to fine you. And we set the fine, this is true, the way we set the fine was in a pub, drunk, literally, I swear to you this is true, right? And somebody said, what should we set the fine at? I'm like, fuck it, 10% of global turnover. Never ever look at how sausages are made, and never ever look at how laws are made. But we started to actually get in there and change things. It took 5 years longer than I hoped, but last year, Ofcom said, we have finally banned the leasing of SS7 global titles. Hands up if you know what SS7 is? Okay, there are people with hair who know what SS7 is. That's rare. Like, genuinely, it's from 1972. It's the International Signaling System for Telecoms. It is a toxic shithole. Right? And I'm being polite. It is terrible. One of the things that happens is people lease global titles, which are basically phone numbers, think of them like that, in order to do things on the SS7 international network, like geolocate people so they can kill them, literally. Right? No more in the UK. You cannot do that in the UK anymore. That's kind of cool, because everybody told me it was impossible, but we've done it. Salt Typhoon. Statistically, we have a lower impact from Salt Typhoon in the UK than anywhere else. I do not believe it's because they don't want in. I believe it's because we fixed some basic stuff a few years ago. Right? So we fixed it. Why is nobody else? What is the incentive problem that's stopping people fixing stuff? So a decade on from when we set the NCSC up, the world has changed quite significantly, but the industry has not. It's still exactly the same. Commoditization of threat. So this is NSO Group, Candiru, et cetera, et cetera. So it used to be, back in 2016, maybe a bit before, you'd have to invest a year to build a cool CNE team. You need VR, you need operations, you need a whole lot, right? Now you need $2 million. We only sell to good people, honestly. That's changed the underlying threat picture. Right? It's made it much muddier to try and understand what's actually going on and why the attacker is doing the thing matters. And so this is actually changing things quite badly. The standards bodies, I talked about ORAN and ITU and 3GPP, they are incredibly fragile. But they are set up to be gamed. Right? If you want to get a vote through, you send 10 people to 2 standards meetings and then call the vote the next day. Right? Because it's bodies that matter, and we just don't do that. Societal reliance on technology is increasing massively, right? I don't need to explain that to this audience. It is much more impactful if technology goes down today than it was 10 years ago. The narrative around security is still toxic. Right? We still don't know how to talk to people. And the incentives are still fundamentally broken. So let's talk incentives. This is the Amazon share price around the day of October the 19th, 2025. Anybody remember what happened on October the 19th, 2025? DynamoDB in US East 1 went down, and so about a third of the internet did. That's the event. So after that availability outage, our share price went up. This is Microsoft's share price. This is when they first disclosed Midnight Blizzard. And this is when the CSRB report came out. Their share price on both days goes up. So I ask you a question. What is the incentive to do security properly if that's the market response? I have no clue how to fix this, but we need to fix this. This is fundamentally broken. If we are putting national security in its widest possible definition in the hands of these companies, they need to be incentivized to do the right thing, not just make money. So, hands up if you know who was responsible for the 2020 SolarWinds attack. Everybody knows, right? It's not a secret, okay? Hands up, it was the SVR, right? Yep. Everybody? Yes? I offer you an alternative view. My alternate view is it was Thoma Bravo, the private equity house who bought SolarWinds in 2015. And I offer that view because if you look at what they did, they went on a massive acquisition spree. And they bought a bunch of stuff and quite shonkily integrated it together. Shonky is a very technical term. I understand some of you may not get it. They drove a huge amount of people out through cost-cutting because their job, Thoma Bravo's job, is to make money. It is not to secure Orion. Right? How do you fix that? Right? You can't regulate your way out of that. That's insane. Let me go back to CNE as a service, or vulnerability research as a service. So this is a blog that I put out in 2018 about the UK's equities process. So we, in GCHQ, we have a world-class, and I do genuinely mean world-class vulnerability research group who find things. And when they find things, we have to decide, do we use it for intelligence or do we release it? I still say we. It's 3 years on they. It's not me anymore. Blame them. This gets fundamentally changed if you have CNE as a service or VR as a service. Because if I now find something in a company, my incentive is to go and sell it for $2, $3, $4, $5 million to Candiru or the NSO or whoever in order that they can do their CNE as a service, rather than going and reporting it and fixing it. And at GCHQ, we always reported it was 90-odd% of the things we found we reported and got fixed. Right? technology is going to get more and more unsafe the more we allow vulnerability brokers, the more we allow CNO as a service. Supply chains. What does XZUtils tell us? Everybody remembers XZUtils? Yeah? So somebody, probably China, put 3 years of effort in to build a legend to get access and influence in order to drop something. And has anybody seen the code and how it worked? I mean, respect, right? It's kind of cool. It's really nice. But what does it tell us? You take that, you take the NPM poisoning that's going on at the moment, you take all the things that we rely on, and you go, how the hell do I defend against this? How do I keep open source and still defend against things like this? I don't think you can. This is a fun question. Hands up, right, who's got a favorite processor? Mine's still 6502. This is cool, by the way. Think about the differences they actually embody. Right? It's not just the ISA. Who makes RISC-V? Right, it's open source, yeah? The RISC-V Foundation. They're not all Western companies. And so what does that mean for RISC-V? But it's fine, right? It's an open ISA, so everybody can see it, so you can find bugs. Sure, absolutely. What about Long Arch 64, the Chinese ISA? Who remembers CVE 2012-0217? Come on, quickly. Terrible people. Sysret, the Intel Sysret bug. Yeah? And this was basically a documentation error that persisted for 20 years. Right? And it was basically when you're taking a non-canonical address in a privileged mode, the Intel processor faulted before switching mode back. So you could generate a fault in privileged mode and escalate your privilege to ring 0. Cool. It's 20 years it was there. What makes you think you're going to find the same in RISC-V? What makes you think you're going to find the same in Long Arch 64? Right? The processors we build on now matter in a way they never used to. How do you cope with that? What's that? We have balkanized technology. We just haven't noticed yet. So the simple stuff, right? So, China is saying you will build on Long Arch 64, you will build on the Chinese version of Linux, whose name I can't remember, you will use our native stuff. US is saying you will not use any of that shit, right? So we've kind of balkanized the simple stuff. Don't really care about that. Mutually assured destruction part is what I care about. So think about CNI control systems, the things that control the power, for example. Where's Winona gone? I'm not jinxing you, I promise. But things like the relays, the protection relays that control the power are run by systems that are common across the world, or they were, but they're not anymore. And so I've got one group of countries who uses one type of technology from China and a different group of countries that uses stuff from the West. Right? Dropping a cyber weapon into I hate that term, dropping a exploit into a foreign adversary's electricity system no longer means you're putting yourself at risk. So that mutually assured destruction piece is gone. It's the same on SWIFT. So everyone knows what SWIFT is? SWIFT's the international clearing system for finance. I would never say this publicly, but it's a bag of spanners. The Chinese have built SIPs, which is their version, and they've got large economies onto SIPs. And so let's say for the sake of argument, China goes into Taiwan and you want to stop the West responding, turn SWIFT off, because it will not affect China and its allies as much as it affects the West. Right? So these things are fundamentally changing how we should think about risk. I've talked about CPUs, and we'll talk about large models in a minute. And then balkanized regulatory frameworks. So, how long? Fine. I'm being given the shut up and get off stage. We anthropomorphize things as human beings, so we try and make them out to be ourselves. And so we anthropomorphize adversaries. We assume that our adversaries are going to be bound by the same constraints and have the same incentives as we do. That's false. We anthropomorphize our average users and think that they can actually read email headers and make a judgment about email. That is false. And the scary one at the moment is we anthropomorphize AI systems. So I genuinely think it's really dangerous. A friend of mine, Sarah Mercer, works at the Alan Turing Institute in the UK. It's the UK's expert centre for AI. She's just published something that, among other things, says this: agents understand context, not consequence. Right? And we assume that because they sound a bit like us sometimes, that they are doing the same thought process. Emergent behavior in an AI system is not the same as intent. And we think it is. And we are forgetting about the basics. So prompt injection is broadly similar to SQL injection. It's the same underlying problem. And about all the URL encoding and web encoding bugs back in 2000s, we've just got new versions. So if you give an LLM a basic thing, it will, if you give something work, Amazon now to be. Right. And get off. And we need to protect it. We need to stand up and say, this is the reality of our subject, right? And not let politicians and companies and others dictate how we talk about stuff. Hate it. Think about make security better. Tolerant and vulnerable. Right? And send